In a dark abyss, a massive minotaur with glowing yellow lines on its body lets out a guttural roar. Below, a young man, Tuka Mamori, screams in absolute terror, his face pale with fear. With immense force, the minotaur smashes its fist down. Tuka is thrown back, screaming as he is violently struck by the powerful blow. As Tuka flees in desperation, his mind races, questioning how his life turned into this nightmare. He was just a mob character, a simple student. How did he end up here, being hunted by a monster after being hit by that goddess? The scene begins to shift, flashing back to where it all began. The scene flashes back to a grand hall. A beautiful woman with long, flowing blonde hair and an ethereal glow introduces herself with a serene smile. She is the one who summoned the students to this new world, the goddess Visis. Her gentle smile turns into a cold, chilling expression. With unnerving calm, she singles out one student. Ahem, Mamori Tuka, you will be disposed of. Tuka is stunned into silence, unable to comprehend her words. The goddess continues, explaining that she summoned them all as heroes to defeat the demon lord. Visis reveals a pyramid showing the ranks of the summoned students. She points out that among all of them, Tuka's aptitude is the lowest of all, a mere rank. She continues her cruel judgment, stating that he would only be a millstone around the necks of the high-aptitude heroes. With a facade of sympathy, she asks him to obediently let himself be disposed of for the sake of everyone else. Shock turns to panic. Tuka desperately shouts for them to wait, his mind reeling from the sudden death sentence. Ignoring his pleas, guards begin to lead him away from his classmates and up the stairs towards an unknown fate. A brief flashback shows Tuka's life at school. He was always a quiet loner, someone who wasn't really a part of the class. He always knew he wasn't the leading actor in his own life. But this was different. The injustice is too much to bear. Tuka's fear turns to rage as he screams, "That's just bullshit." He furiously points at the goddess, yelling that she can't just summon an entire class and then arbitrarily decide to dispose of him. He warns everyone that this means the goddess could do the same to any of them the moment she decides they are no longer useful. Tuka collapses to his knees in despair. He looks back at his classmates, only to find them completely indifferent. They are already talking about their new lives as heroes, completely ignoring his plight. A close-up on Tuka's face shows pure horror. The repeated word "wait" echoes his frantic, unheard pleas as the reality of his abandonment sets in. The crushing realization hits him. All his classmates are already treating him as if he never existed in the first place. He is utterly alone. As a dark portal opens beneath him, a fate he was supposed to obediently accept, Tuka makes one last, desperate cry for someone to wait. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the silence. A female classmate, Sogu Ayaka, steps forward, her expression filled with righteous anger. She declares that what is happening is wrong, reminding everyone that Tuka is their classmate. The goddess looks on, addressing Ayaka as the S-rank hero. Sogu Ayaka marches up the stairs towards the goddess, arguing passionately that Tuka didn't choose to be an E-rank and that the wise and valuable should understand the importance of this. Seeing her stand up for him, a glimmer of hope appears on Tuka's face. Ayaka turns to the other students, trying to rally them, believing they will listen to her, the class president, and agree that this must be stopped. But before Ayaka can finish her plea, the goddess strikes. With a sickening wham, Visis's long hair whips forward like a weapon, hitting Ayaka directly. Sogo Ayaka is violently thrown down the stairs, landing in a heap on the floor, silenced and defeated. Immediately, the goddess Visis begins to shed crocodile tears, putting on a theatrical display of sorrow for the other students. She cries out as if in pain, perfectly playing the part of a benevolent deity forced to take drastic measures. With false tears streaming down her face, Visis declares that, as they can all see, the mere presence of an E-rank has already led the heart of a precious S-rank hero astray, causing dissent. The students look on as Sogu lies defeated, their expressions turning from shock to blame as they fall for the goddess's twisted logic. One of the male students rushes to Sogu Ayaka's side, trying to help her up and asking if she's okay. But before he can help her, another student viciously kicks him away, yelling, "How dare you feel up a girl in the spur of the moment?" The blonde student who kicked him looks down with utter contempt, calling him a pervert. Tuka watches in horror as his classmates twist the situation, their eyes filled with malice. Tuka's mind screams in protest. Why are they narrowing down his way of life like this? Why are they turning on Sogu, the one person who tried to do the right thing? The goddess's manipulation is complete. The entire class turns on Tuka, their faces twisted with scorn. They shout in unison, "We don't need Mamori. Dispose of him. You're just causing a disturbance." As he falls into the dark portal, Tuka looks at the faces of his tormentors, his mind replaying their final verdict. "Dispose of him." He desperately calls out, "Hey, everybody, wait. Weren't we classmates just a moment ago?" But his pleas are met with cold indifference. The blonde student coldly tells another to leave it, stating that Tuka is just in the way of their progress. Tuka's eyes widen in disbelief at the cruelty. Other students join in the mockery. One smirks, telling him to get going already. A girl looks away in disdain, calling him worthless. The betrayal is absolute. Pleased with the outcome, Goddess Visis holds up a glowing orb of light. Excellent. Everyone has given their consent. As she prepares to cast the final spell, Tuka screams, "No way. Bastards!" With the silent, glowing eyes of his former classmates watching, the goddess declares, "In accord with everybody's will, I hereby dispose of you." Her words echo in the darkness, sealing his fate. As he falls, Visis delivers a final, twisted monologue, claiming his death will not be in vain and that this experience will become nourishment for their hearts. She asks if he has any last words, effectively denying his very existence. In that moment of absolute despair, Tuka has a revelation. Shedding tears for people like these is utterly useless. He clenches his fist, blood dripping from his nails. The fear in his eyes is replaced by a burning hatred. A new resolve is forged in the abyss. He will survive. Visis, seeing his tears, mocks him with false sympathy. It is fine to cry. There is nothing embarrassing about it. Please be proud of yourself. Tuka responds not with words, but with a final, defiant gesture. He gives the goddess the middle finger, his face contorted in a snarl of pure rage. "Shut up, you shitty goddess. Go to hell." And with that last act of rebellion, the teleportation magic engulfs him completely, and he vanishes from the grand hall. Tuka lands hard on the cold, unforgiving stone floor of a dark, desolate cave. This is his disposal site. This is his new reality. The flashback ends. We return to the present in the same dark cave. A single drop of water falls from the ceiling, landing in a small puddle. Tuka looks up, his face a mask of dried tears and grime. He stands alone in the immense darkness of the dungeon, clutching his shirt as the weight of the betrayal and his desperate situation crashes down on him. Finally, the dam breaks. Tuka lets out a raw, heart-wrenching scream, a torrent of grief, rage, and despair echoing through the empty cavern. He collapses to the ground, panting heavily, utterly broken and exhausted from the emotional onslaught. But amidst the despair, a spark ignites. His eyes, now cold and sharp, dart around. Where should I go? What should I do? Then a thought cuts through the panic. Oh, right, those skills. He remembers the goddess's words. The moment they arrived in this world, they were all granted their own skills. He recalls seeing other students checking theirs and tries to remember how they did it. Mimicking the gesture he saw his classmates make, Tuka holds out his hands and desperately calls out the command. Status open. A glowing screen, just like from a video game, materializes in front of him. But any hope this brings is instantly shattered by the monstrous shadow that falls over him. The giant minotaur is right there, its eyes fixed on him, ready to strike. The minotaur roars and attacks again. Tuka scrambles to dodge, narrowly avoiding being crushed by the monster's powerful assault. Thrown to the ground by the force of the attack, Tuka's mind fills with a single, terrifying thought. I'm gonna die. As the Minotaur's attack shatters the rock behind him, he sits frozen in fear, questioning if this is truly the end for him, here and now. Panic takes over and Tuka scrambles away, crawling desperately through the darkness. In the distance, he spots a faint light at the end of a tunnel, a possible escape route. A spark of hope ignites within him. A person, of course. There must be others who were disposed of. He thinks that if they can meet up and join forces, they might be saved. But his hope shatters instantly. As he reaches the light, he doesn't find survivors, but a pile of skeletons wearing tattered cloaks, the remains of those who came before him. The horrifying truth crashes down on him. Being disposed of means there's no way out. It means certain death. As he screams in terror at a skeleton, the Minotaur looms behind him, blocking the only way out. Cornered and facing his end, Tuka's mind races in panic. But then a thought cuts through the fear. Right. Skills. Can I overcome this by using skills? He pulls up his status window again, clinging to a final sliver of hope. He might be a rank, but he's still a hero. He frantically checks his skills and sees 3 words under personal skills: abnormal state infliction, paralyze, sleep, poison. He clenches his fist as he stares at the list. All of his skills are only level 1. His hope turns to despair once more. What the hell am I supposed to do with these? He screams. What hero can clear a game with just sleep, paralyze, and poison? He finally understands the goddess's cold logic. This is why he was disposed of. It's because his skills are all failure class. Because he doesn't seem useful at all. As the Minotaur lets out a final, deafening roar, Tuka's despair transforms into grim resolve. If he's going to die either way, then he'll struggle as much as he possibly can. The monster's massive hand reaches down to grab him. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, Tuka begins to stammer the name of his first skill. Pa. With a desperate shout, he unleashes the skill. Paralyze. A brilliant flash of energy erupts from his hand and engulfs the charging Minotaur. Tuka watches, sweating and breathless, his eyes wide with anticipation and fear, waiting to see if his last-ditch effort had any effect. The Minotaur freezes completely, its body locked in place just inches from him, foam spewing from its mouth. Tuka stares in wide-eyed disbelief. It works. He realizes he was jumping to conclusions. Since this world is so much like a game, perhaps there's more to his seemingly useless skills than he first thought. He gulps, a new, calculating thought emerging as he stares at the immobilized beast. If he can actually use these skills, a cold, strategic part of his mind takes over. He considers the situation a one-on-one fight in a closed room where he can spend as much time as he wants. A slow, sinister realization dawns on him. As long as the requirements are met, these skills, they aren't so bad after all. With a newfound confidence, he casts his next spell, Poison. The Minotaur's body is suddenly covered in bubbling boils and a sickly fluid. To his delight, it's really working. Tuka watches the paralyzed and poisoned monster with a cold, analytical gaze. He needs to understand everything. How long does the paralysis last? How long does the poison last? Do they have a time limit? He has to completely understand these skills. He steps closer to the suffering beast, his mind now working like a scientist. Thanks to that goddess, he's trapped here, but that also means time is the one thing he has in abundance. Time to test, to learn. His face becomes a mask of shadow, his eyes glowing with cold malice. This isn't just about killing anymore. It's about gathering data. He looks down at the slowly dying Minotaur and begins his first experiment. Until you die, he vows, I'll be sure to watch you closely. After what feels like an eternity, the Minotaur finally collapses dead. Tuka coldly notes his findings. Time until death about 1 hour. He then realizes that under normal circumstances, his skills are certainly not usable. Suddenly, a notification screen pops up. It's a level up notification. But the numbers are staggering. His level has jumped from 1 all the way to 258. He stares in shock. wondering if he can even take this at face value, and realizing he'll have to investigate this too. Having survived his first trial, Tuka approaches one of the skeletons of a previous victim and takes their tattered mantle, declaring he'll be borrowing it. He looks at the skull with a somber expression. "Did you also get disposed of?" he asks quietly. He clutches the mantle and admits, "I won't claim that I'll get revenge for you, but—" His eyes burn with a new, all-consuming purpose. With the spirit of the fallen Minotaur behind him, he makes a powerful vow. "I will stay alive no matter what, at least until I've bashed that shitty goddess's head in." The scene shifts to a different location, a beautiful and serene forest with a waterfall in the distance. Here, a mysterious woman with long hair and elf-like ears is bathing in a clear stream, her clothes resting on the bank nearby. A close-up reveals her sharp, intelligent eyes as droplets of water fall around her. She rises from the water, her expression calm and composed. Suddenly, she seems to sense something amiss, her gaze turning sharp as she looks up towards the sky. Wrapping a cloth around herself, she quickly leaves the stream and ventures deeper into the woods. The scene cuts back to Tuka, who is now facing a new threat, a group of bizarre, bird-like humanoid monsters. He immediately casts his now familiar spell, Paralyze. A massive horde of these creatures charges towards him, their strange, elongated limbs flailing as they rush forward. The air is filled with their strange, unsettling shrieks as the entire mob descends upon him. Facing the overwhelming swarm, Tuka wonders just how many there are. He then realizes his skill has leveled up, allowing him to target multiple enemies at once. He unleashes a volley of spells, shouting, "Paralyze, paralyze, paralyze." After an intense battle, Tuka stands panting atop a mountain of paralyzed bird creatures, their bodies frozen as they try to claw their way up to him. Surrounded by the twitching, helpless mob, he throws his head back and screams in frustration. What kind of Souls-like game is this? Tuka calms himself down, thinking back to the goddess. He reaffirms his goal. To stay alive, he needs to fully grasp all of his abilities, these so-called gifts he was so arbitrarily given before being disposed of. He reviews the mechanics of his power. The skill is invoked when he says its name, stretching out his arm like a turret while his target is in his field of view. He visualizes his three core abilities: poison, which causes suffering; sleep, which incapacitates; and paralyze, which immobilizes. He confirms his findings from his first kill. Their range is about 20 meters. Paralyze and sleep last for 1 hour. However, the most potent of all, poison, lasts until the target's death. But a crucial question arises. The Minotaur was incredibly tough. He wonders, aren't this dungeon's monsters way stronger than normal? He thinks back to defeating the Minotaur, recalling the notification that his level had gone up. He also remembers the goddess mentioning that the system was optimized to be easily understandable with their world's knowledge, like a game. He looks at his status again. Jumping from level 1 to 258 is just ridiculous. But if it isn't a bug, then what does this massive experience gain from a single monster mean? Staring into the oppressive darkness of the dungeon corridor, the chilling truth becomes clear. The only explanation is that she had no intention of letting him escape this dungeon in the first place. This place was designed to be a one-way trip, an inescapable tomb. His mind flashes back to the goddess's cruel words, her voice echoing in his head. "You are what we call a failure, an unneeded existence. I hereby dispose of you." The memory, the sheer injustice of it all, causes something inside Tuka to finally and completely snap. Clad in the mantle of the dead, he solidifies his new life's purpose. He will survive. He will get stronger. And then he will bash that goddess head in and finally say goodbye to this hell. With cold determination, he turns his attention to the paralyzed monsters. "Let's clean them up," he says, stepping forward and casting poison. He systematically begins to apply his poison skill to the helpless horde, one by one. His eyes are devoid of all emotion except a burning, cold fury as he relentlessly casts the spell, ensuring none of the creatures will survive. Poison, poison, poison. The scene triggers a painful memory, flashing back to his childhood. He sees his abusive father yelling at him. Is that the only thing you can say, you shitty brat? Get out onto the veranda. All young Tuka can do is repeat, I'm sorry. He remembers huddling alone on the cold, snowy veranda, internalizing the abuse. He thought it was all his fault, and that if he just listened to what they said, things would be better. He fantasized that if he was obedient, they would be kinder to him, that they would say he was a good child. Lying on the freezing balcony floor, he imagined they would praise him, but the delusion is shattered by his mother screaming in a rage after someone called for help. His parents are furious, not because of their actions, but because someone called the police. We're his parents. It's none of your business how we treat our brat, his mother shrieks. The memory continues with his father threatening to kill him, a terrifying promise that forces a stream of apologies from the helpless child. Back in the present, Tuka gasps, the trauma of his past washing over him, his face a mask of rediscovered horror. He looks at the paralyzed, dying monsters, and a dark smile spreads across his face. He understands now, as if your problems would disappear with a simple, I'm sorry. He turns his back on the carnage, panting as he comes to a grim conclusion about his own life. Now that I think of it, hasn't my life been hell all along? His thoughts are interrupted by a pressing concern. He's exhausted, and he realizes it's about time the paralyzed spell will lose its effect. His initial plan is simple. When that happens, he'll just cast Paralyze once again. But then, a new, more sinister idea forms in his mind. No, wait. What if sleep and poison work together? What if a third layer is also possible? He decides to test his hypothesis. He casts sleep on one of the creatures that is already suffering from both paralyze and poison. The horde of monsters, already twitching and immobilized, begins to fall limp, succumbing to the new status effect. It works. The creature's pained shrieks turn into a gurgle as it falls into a deep slumber. He realizes with grim satisfaction, stacking the effects works. He visualizes the implications. It's a combo effect. Even if paralyze wears off, sleep and poison will still be active. He can layer them, creating a perpetual state of helplessness for his enemies. He covers his mouth in shock, the full, terrifying potential of his power finally dawning on him. Damn, it's actually possible to defeat my enemies with poison without allowing them to move at all. His transformation is complete. He looks at the writhing mass of doomed creatures, and he no longer sees monsters. A chilling thought crosses his mind. These guys already look like nothing but experience points to me. He sees the faces of all his tormentors, his abusive father, the treacherous goddess, his indifferent classmates. He now understands a fundamental, brutal truth that applies to both this world and his old one. There will always be unreasonable people, people who won't listen, and people who simply don't deserve to be alive. His eyes, now glowing with a chilling spiral pattern, reflect his complete break from the boy he once was. A simple, deadly philosophy takes root in his mind, a new rule for his new life. If they're trying to kill him, then I'll be faster and just kill them instead. Sitting atop the mountain of his defeated foes, completely shrouded in darkness, Tuka embraces his new philosophy. He will no longer be the victim. He will be the one who strikes first. He looks out over the field of dead and dying monsters, a landscape of his own creation. He understands now, because unlike back then, when he was a helpless child, he now has skills at his disposal. He finally has the power to fight back. As he walks away from the carnage, a flood of notifications fills his vision. The experience from the slaughter comes rolling in, and he is bombarded with level up after level up after level up. Finally, a new notification appears, skill level up. All three of his skills have reached level 2, and they have all gained a new, powerful ability, multi-target casting. He looks at the screen, a bead of sweat on his brow, but his eyes burn with determination. His path of revenge has just begun. Inside the dungeon, Mamori Tuka finds a book left behind by a previous victim. It contains a stark warning, beware the soul eater. He flips the page, wondering if that's the name of a monster. The book is an encyclopedia on the forbidden arts, filled with important information. Realizing its value, Momori decides he can't leave it behind and will read it on the go. He then pragmatically takes a rope from the skeleton of the old sage who wrote the book, figuring a fellow disposal victim wouldn't mind. As he takes the rope, the skeleton's jaw creaks, as if giving a final, silent protest. Trapped in the dark, Momori loses track of time, despairing that this uncomfortable passage will be his tomb. But just as he's about to give up, a flash of light reveals a safe room, opened by magic. With his food supply dwindling, a sense of urgency takes over. He knows he has to hurry and pushes the door open. Momori steps through the doorway, peering into the darkness of the unknown territory ahead. Suddenly, strange, eye-like monsters materialize out of thin air, swarming towards him. He calmly activates his skill, Paralyze. He's begun to understand that to survive, he needs to focus on his skill's growth and become familiar with their use. He quickly realizes a crucial fact. By continuously using his skills, he can level them up. A status window appears, showing that his 3 skills, Paralyze, Sleep, and Poison, have all reached level 2, gaining the ability to target multiple enemies. To be more precise, his skills will now automatically hit all enemies that he can perceive within his field of vision. A status screen reveals his incredible progress. Momori Tuka is now level 501. He reflects that a major advantage of his skill is that turning large amounts of monsters into experience has become incredibly easy, without having to even speak. However, he soon discovers a critical weakness. While his skills are taking effect, he's attacked by a monster from his blind spot. He realizes he can't afford the tiniest shred of negligence. To counter this, he's developed something of a sixth sense. A shiver of intuition allows him to feel attacks from outside his vision and dodge just in time. His survival is immediately put to the test as a massive, decaying dragon-like creature appears. Lying on the ground, Momori knows this beast has no intention of letting him escape in one piece. Fear grips him as he wonders if his skills will even work on a giant, undead monster. But he quickly resolves himself. In a dungeon like this, if he doesn't try, he will die anyway. He'll just have to take care of things one after the other. With a grimly determined smile, Momori's fear turns into cold resolve. He decides to use this powerful monster as a test subject, declaring, "I'll have you be my guinea pig." The memory of a gentle smile surfaces. A time when his classmate, a girl with reddish-brown hair and twin tails named Kashima Kabato, told him he was so kind. The memory continues. Kashima had found an injured cat, but confessed she didn't have the courage to take it to the vet like Momori did. Looking down with a sad expression, Kashima called herself a coward for her hesitation. Momori had comforted her, saying it was fine. He told her he preferred a kind coward over a scary maniac, a sentiment that now rings with bitter irony. The memory is interrupted. In the past, another student, Ikusuba, grabs Kashima's attention, pulling her out of her thoughts. "Are you listening, Kashima Kabato?" she demands. Ikusuba's aggressive nature is on full display as she grabs yet another classmate, a Seijai, angrily telling her to drop the formalities and just use her first name. They were preparing for something. Kashima's thoughts race, recalling the moment Class 2C was swept up into another world. She thought they all had to work together, but felt they couldn't keep up with the S-rank and A-rank students. And so, with a manipulative glint in her eye, she began to spin a new plan, suggesting that the B ranks, C ranks, and D ranks should all form their own group to survive. In Momori's memory, Ikusuba praises Kashima's plan, calling her a leader type, but simultaneously insults her as a D-rank airhead whose head is empty. "It's all about having the right people in the right jobs," she says. Ikusuba then crudely points out that with Kashima's impressive bust, she'd be the perfect figurehead to attract followers. The cruel plan is laid bare. They want Kashima to gather as many stupid guys as possible to become their shields. Ikusuba insists they must hurry before the A and S rank students abandon them. Ikusuba's cynicism is on full display. She argues that they can't trust the wicked people who abducted their class to send them home. Instead of fighting enemies, she'd rather create an organization to do as they please, unlike Momori, who made a quick exit. The flashback concludes with the memory of Kashima playing the victim. She had claimed to be scared, shedding crocodile tears, and asking Momori what she should do, solidifying his image of her as a complete hypocrite. Returning to the present, Momori stands in the empty chamber and reflects on what he's learned. That skeleton truly was a great sage. As he sits down to read the sage's book, the monsters he'd previously pacified begin to stir. Without even looking up, he calmly casts sleep, putting them down again while he continues his research. The book reveals the sage's identity. His name was Anglin Berthrard, known as the Great Sage and sometimes the Dark Hero. And just like Momori, the goddess forcibly threw him into this place. The skeleton confirms it had become an eyesore to the goddess Visis. Momori connects the dots. This dungeon isn't just for disposing of E-ranks, but for anyone the goddess finds inconvenient. Filled with a new, cold fury, Momori slaughters the remaining monsters in the chamber, leveling up as he curses the goddess, concluding that she is nothing but evil incarnate. He pauses, bowing his head in a moment of bitter self-reflection. He remembers what he had always aspired to become, a kind, cowardly person. Yet here he is, erecting towers of carcasses, stepping over the dead without feeling a single thing. He realizes this numbness is his new reality. The realization doesn't bring sadness or horror. Instead, a slow, chilling laugh escapes him as he fully embraces the monster he has become. With his new purpose solidified, he walks on. His solitary footsteps echo through the ancient, crumbling corridors of the dungeon. He reaches another door at the end of the passage. His eyes, now cold and determined, are fixed on the path ahead. He finds a door with a strange indentation. Judging by the airflow, he senses that the exit must finally be close. High on the wall is a massive stone face, a carved relief with a single, ominous jewel set in its forehead. Momori understands instantly. Ah, that's the one. He cautiously approaches the giant face, wondering if it's truly a monster or simply a trap that will activate if he tries to extract the stone. He assesses the situation. His level has risen to an unbelievable degree, and he can now somewhat read a monster's behavior. He determines that if it is a monster, he can defeat it with his paralyzed poison sleep combo. But his stamina is nearing its limit. He can't afford to deliberate for long. Gritting his teeth, he resolves to hit it with paralyze first and see what happens. Let's do this. Just in case it's a trap, he positions himself carefully at the very edge of his skill's casting range to maximize his distance. As he begins to cast a spell, a beam of light erupts from the statue's gem, piercing straight through his outstretched hand with violent force. The force of the blast stabs through his body, sending him flying backwards as he screams in agony. Through the blinding pain, he looks toward the statue's glowing eye and understands. It's not a trap. I see it's this guy. Kneeling on the ground and clutching his bleeding wounds, Momori stares up at the fully awakened stone behemoth. He now knows what he's facing. This is the creature he read about in the sage's book. This is the Soul Eater. Panting on the ground and clutching his wound, Momori is in shock. The Soul Eater shot at him before he could even finish saying his skill's name. It's reading his intent, anticipating his every move. The attack, a beam of light, was undoubtedly faster than him. He quickly deduces that the beam is automatically fired the very moment he shows any readiness or intent to attack. Staring up at his terrifying foe from behind a pillar, everything becomes crystal clear. This powerful, perceptive being is the Soul Eater, the true boss of the labyrinth. He desperately considers his options. He can't use his skills without saying their names, a fatal flaw against an opponent who reads his intent. Should he turn back and try to level up more? No, that's impossible. He's already wiped out nearly every other monster. There are barely any experience points left to collect. Trapped and outmatched, utter despair begins to set in. He collapses against a pillar, his will to fight draining away. A bleak thought enters his mind. What if he just gives up on clearing the labyrinth and simply lives out his final days here? Memori is suddenly taken aback as something splatters against the wall. He realizes it's an attack. A grotesque, malformed creature chokes and spews a black, viscous substance. The black puddles on the floor begin to squirm and twitch, slowly coalescing and rising into unsettling, vaguely humanoid shapes. A human face, twisted in agony, becomes visible within the writhing mass of one creature. What the hell are these disgusting things? Memori thinks, his face a mask of horror and revulsion as he prepares to cast his paralysis spell on the newly formed abominations. His eyes widen in sheer terror as a face, contorted in a silent scream, pushes its way out from within the grotesque slime, revealing the true nature of these monsters. And then he understands. These aren't just monsters. They're the tormented faces of all her previous victims. The sheer, terrible taste of it all is too much, and something inside Memori snaps. A wild, unhinged laugh escapes his lips. The main monstrous entity, the Soul Eater, mirrors his breakdown, letting out a roaring, mocking laugh of its own. This laughter, this twisted expression of joy, Memori has seen it so many times before on the faces of his tormentors, the so-called strong, who looked down on him. He understands now. The monster isn't just killing. It's enjoying his reaction, feeding on his terror and despair. The Soul Eater's head hurtles through the air as its victims, the sludge people, close in on Memori. He stumbles back, shouting for them to stay away, but it's too late. One of them makes contact. In a panic, he unleashes his skill. Paralyze. The entire horde of shambling victims freezes, their agonized expressions locked in place. He notes that the skill wasn't obstructed, even with the victims in the Soul Eater's line of sight. But he grits his teeth in frustration, knowing he can't go any further. Tears of desperation well up in his eyes. "I can't cast poison," he screams internally. To him, these victims are not enemies. They are comrades who have suffered a similar fate. "I'm different from you lot," he shouts. He can handle mind monsters, but these are human-shaped beings who have been through the same hell. He takes a step back, unable to act. Like hell can I cast poison on them? His mind is in turmoil, his past empathy warring with his present need to survive. The Soul Eater smirks, savoring the moment. And in that instant, Memori's despair shatters and reforms into a horrifying realization. As I thought, he sneers, his face contorting. This guy's enjoying my despair as the hunted. It's feasting on my misery. The creature lunges, a grotesque fusion of the victim's body and the monster's will, hurtling towards him. As the spirits of the victims plead for help, Memori is overwhelmed, frantically screaming, "Don't come near me," as the sludge humanoids continue to advance. The Soul Eater glides closer, its voice dripping with sarcasm as it offers to save him. Reduced to utter desperation, Memori collapses, screaming into the void. "Somebody please help me. Please answer my call. Notice my struggle. Anybody." Looking down on the writhing sea of its victims, the Soul Eater lets out a triumphant, evil laugh and unleashes the command, "Paralyze." But then a change. From the shadows, a hand extends, crackling with a dark, powerful energy. Memori is no longer cowering. He takes a calm step back as a crack appears on the main statue. The shrieks of the victims intensify. He's found it. That's the one, he thinks, his eyes locked on his target. He glares, his mind flashing back to all the strong people, the arrogant ones who wore the exact same expression of carelessness just before their downfall. He calmly faces the Soul Eater. "You thought I would never directly attack you?" he asks, his voice cold and steady. His entire demeanor changes, revealing the pleasant, smiling face of his old self. He calmly asks the monster, "For how many days, months, years? For how long do you think I played the part of the background mob character, Memori Tuka? For the sake of the people who treated me kindly, that's why allow me to say this. With eyes now turned sharp and ruthless, he unleashes his skill. Poison. The Soul Eater's true face contorts in agony as the venom takes hold. With the poison coursing through the Soul Eater, Tuka Mamori screams, "Have a taste of his victim you belittled," as the monster and its minions are racked with agony. A cruel smile plays on Mamori's lips. "Serves you well, Soul Eater," he says with satisfaction as the monster's face bubbles and melts away from the potent poison. As the creature's body bursts and splits apart, Mamori discovers a new synergy between his powers. If an enemy under the effects of paralysis tries to move, it receives additional damage. Mamori gives a thumbs up, his voice echoing in the now quiet hall. He was the weakest, and his classmates, the goddess, and this monster had all underestimated him. That, he realizes, is why he won and why he's still alive. A new fire burns in his eyes as he casts his sleep spell, wishing he could carve this same look of defeat onto the goddess's face. Time's up, but he doesn't let his guard down. As the monster stirs one last time, he quickly casts Paralyze again, watching as its form finally begins to dissipate into nothing. At last, it's over. The stone head of the Soul Eater lies shattered on the ground, surrounded by the still forms of its victims. Tuka Mamori stands alone amidst the silence. A level up notification appears. He's finally dead. Mamori sighs in relief. He checks his status, surprised to see that not only have his skills leveled up to 3, but he's also broken his supposed level cap. He looks over the fallen forms of the other victims. Realizing the immense EXP gain must have come from them as well, he offers a quiet apology. "I'm sorry if I caused you pain." Suddenly, the ground rumbles and cracks. A bright light erupts from the remains of the Soul Eater. Mamori watches in shock, wondering if this is the work of the people the monster had enslaved. A voice resounds directly in his head, startling him. It's the spirit of a man, thanking him for defeating the Soul Eater. Mamori recognizes him as one of the souls he saw earlier. More spirits appear, telling him he made the right choice in taking the mantle and that they feel refreshed. Mamori is stunned, realizing the souls the Soul Eater had enslaved are now talking to him directly. One of the spirits tells Mamori that before he was captured, he hid some gems near a rock. He asks Mamori to please make good use of them in their stead. Mamori takes a step, now surrounded by the grateful spirits of all the warriors and adventurers he has just freed from their eternal torment. Then, a new figure appears, an old, bearded man. As the spirit pulls on his hood, Mamori realizes he is clad in the same robe as him. This is the spirit of Anglin Berthrard, the great sage and dark hero. Anglin seems to be saying something, but Mamori finds that for some reason, he can't hear the words. He squints, trying to read the spirit's lips. Is the sound being obstructed by something? Finally, he makes out the words as the old sage thanks him. Mamori gives a small, relieved wave as the spirit begins to fade. As Anglin and the other souls disappear into the light, their combined voices leave him with one final, desperate plea. Please defeat the goddess. The request hangs in the air. Mamori stands alone again, muttering to himself that he has no real obligation to respond to that. Well, even if I say that, he thinks, looking towards the dungeon's exit, it might take quite some time. He clenches his fists, his face hardening with resolve. It may take time, but he makes a vow. In the end, I will force that shitty goddess to settle this debt. With his new purpose solidified, the great doors to the dungeon creak open, and Tuka Mamori prepares to step back out into the world. As Mamori steps out, the sunlight feels nostalgic. But his personal victory coincides with a major shift in the world. On that very day, a single piece of information begins to spread across the entire continent. From the far northern reaches, in the land of demons, the great demon emperor's armies have begun their march south. The first casualty of this new war is announced. The kingdom of Magnar's Pride, the great fortress Nightwall, has fallen. Faced with this immense threat, each and every country was forced to gather and plan their countermeasures against the encroaching darkness. The kingdom of Alien was no exception. Its highest authority, the goddess Visis, looked on with a calm, almost pleased expression, as if the world was moving exactly as she had foreseen. Rulers, conquerors, fugitives, and avengers. On this chessboard of fate, a new piece has emerged from the depths of despair. Tokamamori, now cloaked and ready for his revenge. As the flames of war begin to spread across the land, the stage is set. The pawns have all been assembled. An age of upheaval is about to begin. In a dense forest, an elf woman named Willow Zeka is running for her life. Wounded and exhausted, she glances back in panic, realizing her pursuers have caught up to her. As an attack narrowly misses her, Will grits her teeth in frustration. She understands that they are merely toying with her, a grim testament to their power, which she expected from those of the lineage of heroes. The lineage of heroes are descendants of those once summoned to this world, their blood granting them strength and magical power beyond belief. Will knows with certainty that her pursuers must belong to this very lineage. Her chasers are a group of 4, a mercenary band known throughout the lands. They are the infamous Divine White Savages Walker. The group consists of 4 formidable individuals. Magat's Bradness, known as the Sword God; Giobane Senjii, the Overwhelming Force; Azura, the Demonic Heavenly Body; and Zalash Finebird, the Fawn. With no other choice, Will begins a chant, calling upon the regalia of the spirits. She offers the peacefulness of her sleep to form a pact with the spirits Silfixia, Feralbengae, and Willow Zega. The pact is complete. The 3 spirits possess her body, lending her their strength. This is her ultimate power, the regalia of the spirits. Empowered by the spirits, Will unleashes a powerful slash with her sword, testing her newfound strength. She analyzes their strategy. Their objective must be to capture her alive. Otherwise, they wouldn't avoid fatal attacks. Instead, they're mocking her, focused on depleting her stamina and power. She realizes she must settle this quickly before her stamina is completely gone. If she can use their objective to her advantage, she might be able to escape. She activates an ability, 5 Senses Amplification. Suddenly, a terrifying aura manifests behind her. A colossal, flaming skull, radiating an immense and malevolent pressure. Will's eyes widen in sheer terror. The pressure is so immense that she can't even breathe properly, her body trembling uncontrollably. An absolute, overwhelming sense of death washes over her. She stares in disbelief, wondering how she's supposed to fight something so overpowering. Her amplified senses pick up a rustling sound from the thicket to her left. Oh no, she thinks, her face paling as she realizes another threat is near. The scene shifts. In a quiet part of the same forest, a figure calmly takes a crunchy bite out of an apple, completely oblivious to the desperate battle happening elsewhere. Isma Morituka. He sits against a bush, reading a book he has found. It is the Encyclopedia on the Forbidden Arts, a tome left behind by Anglin, the great sage and dark hero. As he carefully reads through the ancient book, he discovers several important things about the world he now inhabits. His mood sours as he learns the first crucial detail. The so-called goddess has a passive skill, the goddess disenchantment, a barrier that deflects all status ailments without fail. Though he expected her to have defenses, he finds the book's contents to be trustworthy. Secondly, the success rates of status ailment skills in this world are extremely low, meaning even proficient users don't rely on them. These 2 points are the reason that damned goddess disposed of him. Memori ponders a critical question. Why then do his skills succeed every single time? It's a phenomenon that should never happen, not even in an RPG. He doesn't think of himself as a chosen one, but some things only make sense if he is. A new theory forms in his mind. What if rank E stands for extra, something that exists outside the norm? And there's one more thing. He recalls that when he was summoned, the goddess gave him a blessing that automatically translates characters into Japanese. Yet, inside the encyclopedia, he found a scroll titled Spellbook of Incantations covered in characters he can't read. The fact that he can't read these characters, despite the goddess's blessing, means that this scroll contains knowledge that is beyond even her power. In short, the scroll contains knowledge that even the goddess herself cannot grasp, a power completely beyond her domain. A sinister grin spreads across Momori's face as he imagines the possibilities. If his own extra-rank existence were to connect with these unfathomable incantations, the potential would be limitless. Still, Momori reminds himself that these thoughts are just conjecture for now. He gets up, deciding to move forward. With nowhere else to go, he figures he'll find the answers to his questions eventually. As he continues his journey through the forest, his attention is caught by a faint whimpering sound. He turns to see a group of small slimes gathered in a clearing. He watches closer and realizes it's not an ordinary squabble. A group of 5 larger slimes are ganging up on a single, smaller one. He correctly assesses the situation as a 5-on-1 lynching. The sight triggers a thought. He suddenly remembers that he hasn't checked the skills that leveled up after his fight with the Soul Eater. He promptly opens his status window to check the updates. His status reveals his Paralyze and Poison skills are now level 3. They've both gained multi-target casting, and crucially, Paralyze now has a partial release option, while Poison has a non-lethal option. A sinister thought crosses his mind. The partial release is handy for making someone talk, while the non-lethal option could be used for torture. He turns his attention back to the clearing. The small slime is putting up quite a resistance despite its size. So even monsters fight amongst themselves, he muses before deciding to intervene. Spreading his hand wide, he commands the small slimes, "Resist! Your defiance shall be rewarded," he declares, his expression hardening. He extends his hand towards the bully slimes, preparing to unleash his devastating skills, Paralyze and Poison. With a smirk, Momori tells the slimes that ganging up on a weak individual isn't good manners. He declares that they will be his guinea pigs and unleashes a paralyzing blast on the entire group. He then accesses his status menu again, tapping a button to switch his poison skill from lethal to non-lethal mode. Now, the slimes will have to endure excruciating pain without being granted the mercy of death. He watches them writhe in agony for a moment, contemplating leaving them like that. But after his brief experiment, he decides to end their suffering by tapping the release button on his status screen. With a chilling, dark expression, Momori gives a single command to the terrified slimes, "Scram." They instantly understand and flee in terror. Now that the coast is clear, he feels a gentle nudge against his leg. He looks down to find the small slime he just rescued, which is stay behind. Momori crouches down to address the small creature. He notes that the slime could have run away with the others, but it chose not to. Smiling, he apologizes for his reinforcements arriving late and congratulates the little slime for its good work, admitting that the recent exercise was pretty refreshing. The slime responds with a happy musical chirp. Peaky eye. Their conversation seemingly over, Momori says goodbye and begins to walk away. However, he stopped when a little slime grabs onto his coat, not wanting him to leave. He stops and turns back, asking if it wants to come along with him. He notes that this slime doesn't have the same bloodlust as the other monsters he's encountered. The slime responds with an enthusiastic PG. Momori considers the situation. He can't exactly bring a monster into a town, but he muses that they're both outcasts anyway. He agrees, telling the slime that if it wants to come along, it can be his guest. To his surprise, the slime cleverly wraps itself around his waist, imitating a belt. Momori is taken aback, impressed by how shrewd the little creature is. Momori remembers that monsters have a detection skill. He tells his new buddy to let him know if anyone gets close. With that, their partnership is sealed. As they walk through the forest together, Momori decides on a name for his new companion. Since all it ever says is PG, he decides to call it Pijamaru. Suddenly, an attack comes flying towards them. Reacting in an instant, Pijamaru flings itself off Momori's waist to intercept the projectile, much to Momori's surprise. Pijamaru extends its body, forming a makeshift shield to block the incoming attack, protecting Momori from harm. The attack was a dagger. A shocked Momori looks up towards the trees as he realizes Pijamaru just saved him. The little slime, now angry, squeals defiantly at their unseen assailant. From the trees, the mercenaries, the white savages walkers, observe their target. They realize Momori is not the person they are looking for and dismiss him as a shabby little brat, wondering what to do with him. The four mercenaries descend, surrounding Momori. Their leader identifies him as a suspicious person deep in the forest who might be an accomplice of their true target. Without hesitation, he gives the order, "Kill him." In the forest, Tuka Momori finds himself surrounded by a group of mercenaries. Their leader questions him about a woman they are tracking, demanding to know where she is. The leader of the white savages walkers, a man with a prominent scar, threatens Tuka, giving him a choice: either talk and die painlessly or refuse and be tortured. The mercenary leader scoffs at Tuka's terrible luck. In response, Tuka begins to act, feigning fear and claiming he's just a simple wanderer. Another mercenary, Magats, is encouraged by his comrades to test out his brand new scimitar on their captive, Tuka. Pleased with the suggestion, Magats unsheathes his new weapon, eager to draw blood. He contemptuously steps on Tuka's sword, pinning it to the ground. With a sadistic grin, Magats details how he'll dismember Tuka, starting with his arms and legs before finally taking his head. As Magats swings his scimitar down, Tuka appears to beg for his life, pleading not to die a worthless death. But his act is just a distraction. Finding his opening, Tuka's demeanor changes instantly. He stops pretending and reaches out his hand to cast a spell. Tuka unleashes his skill, shouting "Paralyze." The spell hits all four mercenaries simultaneously, stopping them in their tracks in a flash of light. Sparks crackle around the paralyzed mercenaries. The leader realizes in horror that Tuka's abnormal state skills, deemed useless by the goddess, actually work on humans. Tuka stands calmly amidst his frozen enemies, who can't believe he managed to incapacitate four men at the same time. He mockingly calls his skill a total failure and tells them they don't need to understand. He reflects that, from his experience, things that seem impossible are actually quite common. With cold determination, Tuka declares his new philosophy: an eye for an eye. He vows to destroy the unjust rules of this world, preparing another deadly spell. He unleashes his next skill, poison, coldly telling the helpless mercenaries that their luck must be terrible. Tuka stands over the bodies of the mercenaries, his skills having swiftly and decisively ended their lives. He looks over the field of bodies, the four mercenaries now dead. He calmly acknowledges that he is the one who killed them all. Looking at his own hand, Tuka reflects on what he's just done. This is the first time he has ever taken another human's life. He is shocked to find that he feels nothing, despite the tears welling in his eyes. He wonders if it's because his victims were nothing but scum. Tuka clenches his fist, his back turned to the dead. He accepts his new reality, concluding that he feels no misgivings about taking another life. He rummages through the belongings of the dead, deciding to only take their money since their equipment could be easily traced back to them. As he takes their coin pouch, he reasons that the dead have no need for money anyway. Suddenly, he senses an approaching presence. His slime companion, Pijamaru, wriggles on his shoulder, sensing it too. Tuka turns, alerted to the new arrival. Tuka feels a strong, overwhelming pressure coming from a specific direction, a pressure that makes him shiver. He recalls the mercenaries mentioning their hunt for a woman. As he analyzes the approaching presence, he notes that it lacks the same ruthless killing intent as the men he just fought. He carefully considers what to do next. A plan quickly forms. Believing this must be the mercenary's target, he decides to apply the enemy of your enemy is your friend principle. He instructs Pijamaru to bait her from one direction while he moves to intercept. Elsewhere in the forest, the elf woman, Ozeka, is exhausted and overwhelmed by what she calls a vision of death, the same malevolent pressure Tuka sensed earlier. This pressure is so strong that it's blocking her detection skills. Despite her fatigue, she forces herself to stand firm, ready for another confrontation. Suddenly, she realizes something is strange. The intense killing intent that had been hounding her from the mercenaries has completely vanished. A rustling in the bushes catches her attention. Thinking it's her pursuers, she turns to face the sound, but it's a trap. Tuka, having orchestrated the diversion, knows he has her. From a distance, Tuka casts Paralyze, successfully immobilizing her. He then approaches from behind, expressing his relief that the plan worked. Tuka explains that while he could sense she was prepared for a fight, she didn't seem eager to kill. This piqued his interest, so he only paralyzed her as a precaution, noting that unlike the mercenaries, she seemed civilized. Stunned and unable to move, Willow Zeka realizes he's not one of her pursuers. She stammers, asking what his goal is and if he's also an enemy. Tuka ignores her question and instead asks for information, wanting to know where the nearest village is. Meanwhile, Willow Zeka uses her own skills, consulting with the wind spirits who confirm that Tuka is not lying. Noticing she used the word also, Tuka remains cautious, realizing she might still suspect him. He decides to release the paralysis on her head only, allowing her to speak while keeping her immobilized. Now able to talk, she is surprised. Tuka explains that after everything that's happened to him, flashing back to his betrayal, he can't afford to carelessly trust a stranger. She concedes his point, agreeing that it's common sense for a wanderer to be cautious. Tuka listens, seeming to consider her words. Tuka then directly asks if she was the one being pursued by the 4 mercenaries. Shocked, she asks if he encountered the White Walkers, confirming they were her pursuers. Tuka bluntly confirms that he did, and that he killed them. The revelation leaves the elf woman completely speechless. He asks if killing them was a bad thing, stating they were worthless scum who tried to kill him first. As he speaks, Willow Zeka's powers confirm he is telling the absolute truth. Her demeanor changes completely. She assures Tuka she bears him no ill will and goes so far as to call him her savior for killing her pursuers. Realizing she is speaking to her savior from behind, she admits it is rude of her to be addressing him in such a way. As the paralysis effect dissipates, she fully turns and removes her mask, revealing her face to Tuka for the first time. Tuka understands this gesture. By showing her face, she is lowering her guard and showing trust. He allows her to face him directly. She thanks him for his consideration and, seeing him as an upright person, says that she won't question him further. Instead, she invites him to ask her anything. Now facing each other as tentative allies, Tuka pulls a scroll from his coat. He mentions that, unlike the mercenaries, her attire suggests she is familiar with magic. He unfurls the mysterious scroll he found in the dungeon, the one with unreadable symbols, and asks if she knows anything about them. Her eyes widen in absolute shock. It's clear from her expression that she instantly recognizes the ancient symbols on the scroll, leaving Tuka and the audience on a cliffhanger.